Today, we're talking about how to stop hitting that stupid ball into the stupid net. Look, we all do it, and that's the first thing I want to just mention here right off the bat. Hitting the ball into the net is unavoidable. However, there are some common themes and patterns here that I want to explain that I think is going to help. So let's get started with the real basic one here. I've got the camera set up right along the net, and Linda and I are going to dink back and forth here. And the first thing here is footwork. You have to get good at resetting your footwork. If your footwork is off, you're very likely to hit the ball strangely, and that will, of course, make a miss hit, and then you'll hit it into the net. So I want you to watch my feet as we're dinking back and forth here. Sometimes you have to move your feet, but it's very important to get back into position once you do. And if you want to give yourself that little split step, then you can totally do that. And this is actually a really good example because of the wind. Y'all probably notice it's a little bit windy right now. And that makes the dinking a little bit easier, but you see how this works. There's a footwork reset after every strike, and that guarantees that you'll be ready for the ball, and thus you'll make a more solid strike. That counts for everything, regardless of what it is. The third shot, the return, whatever it is, resetting your footwork is super, super critical. The next thing here is trying to catch the ball. This is really common on volleys, especially at the kitchen line. What a lot of people do, understandably, and this happens to me too, is when they're about to volley the ball, they have a tendency to try to volley the ball with their hand. I know that seems weird, but it's really natural to want to sort of catch the ball. But in reality, the sweet spot of your paddle is at least 6 inches away. So if you're noticing that you're hitting a lot of balls on the neck here of the paddle, and they're just getting kind of dumped into the net, you need to have a little bit more confidence, and you need to trust the fact that your paddle is a lot longer than it feels. So let me just kind of show you what this looks like here. So did you notice how that strike, it was right in the sweet spot? But what people do is they'll try to catch the ball like that, and you get that nasty, awful, clunky feeling. We all know what it feels like, again, including myself. So have a little bit more faith in your paddle and start to hit further out from your hand like this. You see that? If you notice that you're hitting more shots, especially these volleys, on the neck than you are at the very tip of the paddle in terms of miss hits, that means you're trying to catch the ball. Pay attention to that pattern. Really, really important to understand here. So really going to be focused on using that sweet spot like this, okay? Making sure that I'm hitting things more towards the top of the paddle than the bottom of the paddle. Stop trying to catch the ball. The next thing here is trying to hit volleys, or especially overheads that are way too far out in front of you, or trying to hit balls that are way too low aggressively. These things kind of go hand in hand together, but let me just show you kind of what this looks like, and the wind is really going to help here. I want you to notice what happens when I hit a volley way too far out in front of me like that. You see how that happened? I tried to swipe at it when it was just way too far out in front, and I'm having to reach in and try to hit it. And what happens is when you do that is because you're so far out front here like this, the paddle has no choice but to close down like that, and all you're going to do is hit it into the net. That's all that's going to happen. Another area where this comes up is, again, back to footwork. What people do is they'll do something like this, where they'll fling their foot out like that and then try to hit the ball. All that's going to do, although it feels natural, that may reduce the amount of reach that you have. But most importantly, if that ball ends up dropping down, then you're in a horrible position to reset your footwork and then come back and take it on the bounce. Now, this isn't necessarily bad footwork, doing something like this where you're taking your foot back. Sometimes that can feel natural and sometimes that's okay. But you have to be absolutely certain that you can pull it off. So again, once you notice what happens here, okay, that's a perfect example. And you see how I swiped straight down on it like that. To fix this issue, instead of coming down, you have to come from the side a little bit more. Okay, so you notice how I came from the side. So now, instead of the paddle closing down this way, it closes down this way. And that keeps the paddle from closing down into the net. It makes a really, really, really big difference. Okay, watch. Way, way better. Notice the footwork again. Notice how I got into position and then stroked through the ball. That goes back to that footwork thing. So be really careful when it comes to swiping at those volleys right in front of you. When it comes to balls that are too low, do not attack balls that are low. Just don't do it. If it's not bouncing at least like above mid-thigh area, preferably the waist, don't attack it. It's just gonna be a bad idea. Let me show you. If it's too low, don't attack it. And here's the other problem with attacking things that are too low, is if you realize it's too low, then you'll say to yourself, oh, I need to hit it higher to get it over the net. And then that leads to either a pop-up or it goes out. Now, we've all heard the whole make sure you watch the ball, right? Well, I want to go out kind of a different approach here. It's not just watching the ball, it's watching what happens to the ball after it bounces. So many people get messed up after the ball bounces and they miss hit because they're not watching which way the ball bounces. These days, people are getting better at spin, backspin, topspin, and so on. So thus, you need to be paying attention to how that ball bounces. So let me just show you kind of generally how this works. Again, Linda's gonna feed me some shots here, and I'm gonna really pay attention to the way that ball behaves and the way it bounces. Not only that, but I'm also gonna pay attention to what that spin is looking like as it's coming over. I'm watching the spin, I'm watching the direction of the ball. However the ball is spinning is how it's going to bounce when it lands for the most part. That's not really like an absolute rule, but you're most likely going to experience that. So I'm really going to focus on the way the ball is bouncing here. I'm keeping an eye on the ball, of course, right? But that's not just what I'm doing. I'm really trying to focus on how the ball is going to behave after it bounces. This is really common on the fifth shot. Really common, because what will typically happen on the fifth shot right here in the middle of the transition zone is someone will drive the ball really hard on the third, they'll block with the fourth, and there's so much spin and crazy stuff going on with that ball. It's even worse if it hits the net band. So pay attention to the way the ball bounces here and respond accordingly. Notice how I kind of waited there? Nice third. Notice how I sort of waited and kind of studied it for a half second? That's what you can do to give yourself a little bit better chance of hitting the ball solidly. So here's a good one. You know what causes a lot of people to hit third shots into the net? Is being afraid of the pop-ups. Don't be afraid of popping up the ball, guys. First of all, you're gonna pop the ball up. That's just a fact of life, all right? It's just like hitting the ball into the net. It's a fact of life, it's gonna happen. Do not be afraid of hitting the ball into the net. Hitting a pop-up is significantly better than hitting the ball into the net. So your goal when it comes to drilling thirds or whatever, returns, whatever it is to not hit it into the net. Don't be afraid of doing that. And all I'm doing is just making smooth strokes here, not doing anything too crazy. Nice soft hands, coming right through the ball. Make sure the footwork is right. Resetting my footwork every single time the ball comes over. That wind is really messing me up right now. But you see kind of the point here. Nice, smooth strokes. Don't be afraid of hitting that ball into the net. Now, another thing is not understanding distances or angles. Critical stuff here. I'm gonna take you back to geometry class, okay? If I were to draw a straight line from this line to this line, okay, right in the middle, kitchen line to kitchen line, it's 14 feet. But how far is the distance from this same spot to where Linda is standing? It's longer. So if I were to hit the same dink here, like this, that way, it may not get over the net because the diagonal is always longer, always. So if you're trying to dink this way, the same way you dink this way, you're gonna hit the ball into the net. Similarly, if I were going to try to hit a shot from back here to here, it's going to, of course, be longer as if I was hitting it here. What happens a lot is on cross-court dinking, people get way out here, right? They get pushed all the way out, and what they do is they hit the ball the same way they were doing as if they were dinking from here. And all you're going to do is hit it short into the net. So let me just kind of show you what this looks like here. So I'm going to really focus on the distance of these shots based on where the ball lands. So way back here, I have to hit the ball harder. See that? Now I got to hit it shorter. Now kind of medium range, now longer. All of my cross-court dinks are landing in the same spot. What matters is where the ball lands over here, and then I'm adjusting the force of the shot accordingly. So right on front of me, yeah, definitely don't need to hit these very hard. Look how short they are, right? Oh, but over here, need to hit it harder. Need to hit this one harder. Focus on those distances. Again, a really good example here, and a good thing to drill for both you and your partner is to have your partner hit shots here in the middle and then way over here on the side, and focus on the different types of power that's required to get the ball over. So guys, I hope that was helpful. Those are some tips on how to stop hitting it into the net as much, right? Remember, we all hit the ball into the net. It's gonna happen. But I hope that was helpful. Again, make sure you go check out PK Academy. That's where all my really crazy good stuff is. Pickleballkitchen.com/membership. Make sure you go check that out. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.